Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have a list of my October TBR, or not TBR. With this video, I am discussing all of the books that I intend to read in the month of October. This month is a big difference than normal. I am going much more heavy into science fiction than I normally go, but I do have several other genres represented, so it's going to be fun. The first thing I want to talk about is the book that I don't actually own that comes out in October, and that is the book called Star Wars: The High Republic Path of Deceit. This is a YA novel. This is the first book in the new High Republic Phase 2, which goes back 150 years before Phase 1. It is kicking off the next era of the High Republic, and I'm super excited to read it. It is by Justina Ireland and Tessa Gratton. I've never read anything by Tessa Gratton, but I've heard good things about her style. Justina Ireland has been hit or miss. She's written some books that I thought were okay, some books I thought were terrible, and one book that I thought was amazing. So it could go anyway. So I'm excited to read that book. That releases in early October. I believe it's like October 4th. So I'll be reading that at the beginning of October. And I'll, of course, have my review as soon as I read it. I also have several other books that I'll talk about. So book number 2 for this month is a YA book, and you probably, if you've been following along, you know what book it is. It's Mockingjay, the third book in the Hunger Games trilogy. I read the first 2 books over the course of the last 2 months. I thought that book 1 was amazing. I thought book 2 was also amazing, so I have high hopes for this one, although I've heard this is the controversial one. What I really am excited about is that I like the political intrigue in this trilogy, and so I want to see how that works here. I did watch the movies beforehand. I know that's a sin in the book community, but I wasn't a fan yet, so I'm going to be reading this one this month, and I'm hoping I enjoy it. I've really enjoyed getting to YA because I used to not like YA, and now I'm enjoying it a lot more. So that is why it is book number 2 of the month for me. Book number 3 is a science fiction book, but it's not your traditional science fiction. It's more high concept, and that is Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. I, of course, again, loved the movie, and I've heard good things about the book. I saw Murphy Napier's review of this book when she read it a couple years ago, and she absolutely loved it, so I'm excited to read this. I think everyone knows what the premise of the book is, so I won't talk about it either. Then we have a David Weber novel. I've never read David Weber. This is On Basilisk Station. This is the first book in his Honor Arrington series. I don't know too much. I know this is hard military science fiction, and I know that it involves the female character of Honor Arrington, who's very strong and militaristic. Other than that, I don't know much about the series. I've already bought like the first 7 books in the series because I saw them for real cheap at the used bookstore, so I am excited to read this book, but interesting because I've never read David Weber, but I like hard science fiction, and I know he's good friends with Timothy Zahn, who I do really love Timothy Zahn's novels. Speaking of Timothy Zahn, I have one of his older novels, Spinnerette. This was back when he was writing for Baen Books, and Baen had a very different logo. This is one of his first novels. It is, let me briefly read, it is the United States, the United Nations, and 9 known sentient races competing for planet space all want to possess the cable spun by unknowns who abandoned the Spinnerette thousands of years ago in perfect working order. What the cable can do for the various races and what it did to and for its vanished investors are 2 of the thrilling mysteries Zahn weaves into his convoluted high-tech thriller. Just very exciting. I enjoyed his other old Baen books, like the Cobra trilogy, so I'm really interested to see how this stacks up compared to his other books. I also have 2 Star Trek books on my list. This is books 6 and 7 for the month. I have Paths of Disharmony and Plagues of Night. These are both 2 books in the Typhon Pack novel line. I've read the first 2 Typhon Packs as I've recorded this, and as this releases, I've read the 3rd Typhon Pack novel. This is books 4 and 5 in that series, and so I am really excited to read these. This is Paths of Disharmony is by Dayton Ward, and Plagues of Night is by David R. George III. This series has been meh so far, but we'll see if this picks up substantially. I've heard great things about this book, so I'm really interested in seeing what this series does. And then we have book 7 for me is we're going into the fantasy genre, departing science fiction, going into fantasy, and I have Dawn Shard from the Stormlight Archive. This is a novella technically, but because of the way it's produced, it's in a book format. It's about 300 pages. I'm willing to count it as a novel because of the way it's done. I will say this, I have read novels that are shorter than this, so I'll count it in my novel line. Excited to read it. I've loved everything by Brandon Sanderson, so I'm interested to read him in short form. So this will be the second novella of his I read. I also read the Emperor's Soul, which was a really good novella. So this is book number 8. And the final book of the month is my only tome. I've read a lot of tomes recently. I've been averaging like 2 or 3 a month. And that just got untenable for me. So I'm only doing 1 tome in the month of October. But it's a doozy of a tome, and that is Destiny, the third book in the Rhapsody and Prophecy trilogy. Rhapsody, Prophecy, and Destiny. And this is, I think it's called The Symphony of Ages is the series. I absolutely loved the first book in the series, Rhapsody, one of the favorite books of the year for me. And so I'm really excited to read this one because I haven't heard anything. Some of these other books, I've heard things about them. I've heard nothing about this, but I just know I love the first book so much. So I'm hoping that this book and book 2, which I'm reading currently, live up to the book 1's heights, because book 1 was just so amazing. And then there's more after this that I'm ready to read afterwards. So that is my TBR for the month of October. 9 books total. I have science fiction, young adults, and I have fantasy, and I have some tie-in novels. So I've got a couple on spread, but mostly it's science fiction is the hard one this time. So if you're reading any of these, let me know. If you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts about them down in the comments section below. But until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.